You are not going to believe this, folks. After months of harassing my family, after illegally fining us thousands, after sending her cronies to demolish our heritage fence, the HOA president, Brenda Maxwell, finally got what she deserved. It wasn't a fine. It wasn't a letter. It was an involuntary nuclear collision with the very property she tried to destroy. Her $200,000 luxury SUV, a pristine white German import, didn't just get a dent. It was utterly, catastrophically split down the middle by a fence post she swore was out of compliance. Stick around to see the jaw-dropping security footage of this karmic wreck and how it cost her everything. Before we dive into this absolute saga of entitlement and explosive payback, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button until your finger hurts and subscribe right now. We are exposing the worst HOAs and the most entitled Karens on the internet, and you don't want to miss a second of this glorious justice. Hit that notification bell. Let's get into the drama. Our story begins in the seemingly peaceful Willow Creek Estates, which bordered my family's historic five-acre horse ranch. For generations, the Anderson Ranch has stood as a quiet sentinel against suburban conformity. My grandfather built the original perimeter fence, a magnificent rough-hewn cedar post-andrel structure stained a deep, earthy mahogany. It wasn't in the HOA, mind you, but it bordered the property of Brenda Maxwell, iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek HOA. The initial conflict was simple. The HOA covenant stipulated that all boundary treatments must be neutral, non-offensive, and professionally maintained white vinyl. Brenda decided our gorgeous, rustic, $100-year-old cedar fence was an eyesore that negatively impacted property values. The first salvo was a passive-aggressive letter, not to me, but to my neighbor, demanding they pressure me to comply. I responded politely, firmly, and legally, with a certified letter from my attorney, stating two irrefutable facts. 1, we were not members of the HOA, and were therefore not subject to their rules. And 2, the fence was built entirely on our side of the recorded property line. Brenda, however, did not understand the word no, nor did she grasp property law. The letters intensified, shifting from requests to notices of violation, complete with threats of fines, all directed through the terrified neighbor. When I ignored these bogus threats, the true escalation began. Brenda started sending daily emails, citing obscure or entirely fabricated rules. She even sent an HOA committee, a terrified trio of retirees, to photograph the fence from every conceivable angle. The breaking point occurred over a single fence post. The very last post on the west end had naturally developed a slight lean over the decades. Brenda seized on this. She sent a final threatening notice delivered by an actual uniformed security guard stating that the defective and dangerous post was an imminent hazard that had to be replaced within $48 hours, or the HOA would remediate the violation and bill me $2,500. I called my lawyer, who agreed to send a blistering CI and desist. That letter was mailed on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, I woke up to a sound that made my blood run cold, the whine of a chainsaw. Cliffhanger. I rushed outside to find 3 men in reflective vests standing on my property, measuring the height of that ancient cedar post. And leading the operation, clipboard in hand, was Brenda Maxwell herself, pointing and directing them with a malicious smile that promised war. The moment I stormed out, demanding to know what they thought they were doing, Brenda's malicious smile sharpened into a predatory grin. "Mr. Anderson," she said, "we are simply performing the necessary abatement of a documented hazard. You failed to comply with the violation notice. And as per Section $3 billion of the covenants, we are authorized to enter to correct violations that affect the community's appearance." I pointed at the ground. "You are on private property, Brenda. Your covenants do not apply here. This is trespass. You will cease immediately and leave my property, or I will call the sheriff." She scoffed. "Go ahead, call them. They'll just tell you this post is a danger and we have every right to remove it." The sheer audacity took my breath away. As I reached for my phone, she barked an order. "Take it down now. I'll cover any little fine he tries to impose." The chainsaw roared to life. In a matter of seconds, that ancient cedar post crashed to the ground. They dragged it unceremoniously onto their side of the line. Brenda wasn't finished. She then proceeded to direct the workers to saw off the top $18 inches of the remaining posts all the way down the line. claiming the original height was also non-compliant. It was an act of pure vandalism, a calculated, destructive show of power. I was on the phone with the $911 dispatcher, my voice shaking. The police arrived $20 minutes later. Brenda and her crew were gone. Officer Davis listened patiently, looked at the mangled fence line, and sighed. Mr. Anderson, I can file a report for vandalism and trespass, absolutely. But this is going to be a civil matter. The DA is going to be very hesitant to file criminal charges. The injustice was a physical punch to the gut. That night, the anger kept me awake. The next day, I received a certified letter from the HOA's legal counsel, a $4,500 invoice for the hazardous abatement, plus a $500 non-compliance administrative fee. The letter was signed, of course, by Brenda Maxwell. My lawyer, Helen, was apoplectic. We will sue her personally, not just the HOA, for triple damages and emotional distress. But Brenda, emboldened, was escalating the harassment. She had a new obsession, the ranch entrance gate. My entrance was marked by 2 towering stone pillars. Brenda began parking her enormous white SUV, a brand-new Mercedes-Benz GLS $600, right up against the property line near the pillars every day, clearly just to block my view and glare. Then came the final, most outrageous act. We had been planning a small wedding for my daughter on the ranch grounds. On Thursday morning, my daughter rushed in, tears streaming down her face, holding a printed email. Brenda had contacted the venue booking company and the catering company, claiming that the Anderson Ranch was currently under legal investigation for property violations and that the HOA was mandating a moratorium on all large gatherings. The catering company, fearing a legal headache, had canceled the $15,000 contract. The wedding was in jeopardy. Major cliffhanger, I was helpless. She had destroyed the fence, charged me for it, and now she was trying to destroy my daughter's wedding. I sat staring at the mangled fence line, the illegally cut posts, and the one lone, remaining cedar post on the far corner, tall, proud, and untouched, thinking, how do I stop this monster? The cancellation of my daughter's wedding was the moment the game changed. I looked at that last untouched cedar post, and a cold, clear idea formed. It was a dark, poetic kind of justice, a plan that used her own greed and recklessness against her. I called my lawyer, Helen, to confirm the exact recorded property line and the liability of a vehicle entering private property. That was all I needed. Step 1. The trap. I knew Brenda had a pathological need to document and control. I had a military-grade, panoramic $4,000 camera system installed, completely concealed within the stone pillars, aimed directly at the area. I also purchased a professional-grade dash cam for my own truck, which I parked conspicuously near the gate. This was bait. Step 2. The upgrade. That last lone cedar post, the one they missed, was structurally sound, but I made it a fortress. I bought $10 foot lengths of $2 inch, scheduled $80 steel pipe and drove one down over the cedar post, $4 feet into the bedrock, then filled the pipe with $60 pounds of high-strength concrete. It still looked like the ancient cedar, but inside it was a rock-solid, vehicle-stopping pillar of steel. At step 3, the bait. I took the police report, the cease and desist, a printed copy of Brenda's cancellation email, and I left them in a clear, labeled folder on the passenger seat of my conspicuously parked truck. I knew she couldn't resist, and I was right. The next afternoon, the cameras were rolling. Brenda's gleaming white Mercedes-Benz GLS $600 pulled up to the gate. She glanced around. She thought she was alone, and then she pulled off the road, onto my unpaved shoulder, and parked closer to the fence, then quickly opened my passenger door. She snatched the folder and started flipping through the documents, smiling. I watched the entire thing live. My son, in on the plan, drove his old sedan down the road at a perfectly legal speed. As he approached, Brenda, startled and wanting to appear innocent, instinctively slammed her luxury SUV into reverse, intending to pull back out into the road. But she was parked at an angle, and she was in a frantic hurry. The acceleration of the powerful V8 engine and the sharp turn of the wheel aimed her rear quarter panel directly at the one remaining unmolested cedar post. The steel cord post, immovable and unyielding, met the paper-thin German steel. There was a sound like tearing aluminum foil, followed by the sickening crunch of crumpling metal. The post acted like a giant blunt can opener. It sliced right through the rear passenger door, through the rear axle, and almost to the center console, ripping the side of the vehicle open. Airbags deployed, and the Mercedes was instantly and irrevocably totaled, its entire chassis twisted around the final, triumphant cedar post. Brenda was trapped, pinned in her driver's seat by the deployed airbags, staring in disbelief. Resolution. I pulled up in my truck, opened my door, and stood there, looking down at her. Compliance, Brenda? Looks like you finally complied. The silence that followed the crash was deafening, broken only by the hiss of the Mercedes steam and Brenda's hysterical cries. The area was swarming with police, fire, and the tow truck I had called. The security footage, $4,000, panoramic and utterly damning, was already saved. When Officer Davis arrived, he watched the footage, Brenda trespassing, stealing documents, and then, in a panicked attempt to flee, totaling her own vehicle on my property. She was illegally on your property, taking your property, and in her flight she hid a legally placed stationary object on your property, he summarized. And the stationary object? It was that fence post. I nodded. The one she claimed was a hazard. I reinforced it the day after they vandalized the rest of the line. Officer Davis's lips twitched, radioed in, negative on an accident report. This is a single vehicle, self-inflicted damage event on private property. The driver, Brenda Maxwell, is being detained for trespass and petty theft of documents. Brenda was transported to the station. The theft of the police report and my daughter's canceled contract email, captured on video, gave the DA the criminal angle. Within 48 hours, the news broke on the local broadcast. Brenda was immediately, unanimously, and humiliatingly stripped of her HOA presidency. My lawyer, Helen, went straight for the financial jugular. We filed suit, not just against the HOA, but against Brenda Maxwell personally for criminal vandalism, trespass, theft, tortious interference with a contract, and $3 million in punitive damages. The insurance company for the Mercedes-Benz denied her claim instantly. Their investigation concluded that the car was totaled during the commission of a crime and that the damage was caused by a stationary object on private property. She was now personally responsible for the $200,000 vehicle loan. The HOA, hoping to mitigate their own liability, offered a quick settlement. They would pay for the complete professional restoration of my entire fence line and my legal fees, provided I dropped the suit against the HOA entity. I accepted, but only on the condition that they issue a public, community-wide apology and a declaration that the Anderson Ranch was explicitly outside of HOA jurisdiction in perpetuity. They agreed. Brenda, isolated and facing my personal lawsuit alone, was utterly exposed. The payback was financial, public, and utterly, deliciously isolating. The long-term fallout for Brenda Maxwell was a complete structural demolition of her standing and wealth. With the HOA dropping their defense and providing critical deposition testimony that detailed her tyrannical and rogue behavior, her personal defense collapsed. Helen was relentless. During the discovery phase, we uncovered a history of questionable expenditures by Brenda on the HOA's dime. This was a clear case of abuse of power and fiduciary malfeasance. The civil suit went to mediation, and Brenda, facing not just a $3 million judgment, but also the threat of criminal charges for the theft and the financial improprieties, folded completely. The final settlement was confidential, but she paid for everything. She personally covered the $4,500 fee she had illegally charged me. She paid the $15,000 baller for the canceled catering contract. She covered all of my attorney fees, and she paid a crippling six-figure punitive damages settlement. The money wasn't the victory. The public, humiliating necessity of selling her pristine, compliant Willow Creek home to cover the judgment. And the loss of her Mercedes was the final, satisfying nail in her coffin. Brenda Maxwell was forced to sell her property and move out of Willow Creek Estates entirely. She was quite literally chased out of the neighborhood by her own entitled greed. The ultimate victory was not just that Brenda was gone, but that the entire community knew exactly why she left. The ranch stood, the family celebrated, and the villain was banished, broke and broken, by the very fence she tried to destroy. The absolute final, glorious revenge occurred 6 months later. My daughter's wedding finally took place on the ranch. The newly restored cedar fence, Built from ancient growth lumber, I sourced myself, stood tall and proud. And in a final public act of defiance and celebration, I placed a small, engraved brass plaque on the base of that unyielding, a steel-cord cedar post, the one that totaled the Mercedes. The plaque read, simply, property line marker. December 1st, $2,025. Justice was served, and it tasted like sweet, cedar-smoked revenge. What an unbelievable story of entitlement meeting an immovable force. That final steel-cord post is now the stuff of Willow Creek legend. Let me know in the comments. What was the most shocking moment for you? Is it the cancellation of the wedding or the $4,000 security footage of the actual crash? Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on the notification bell, and get ready for the next serving of delicious high-stakes HOA drama.